Hi there, and here we are back for another installment of the weekly predictions using astrology. Today we're going to talk about predictions for the week of March 18th, and first let's quickly recap predictions for March 11th. My predictions for the direction of the stock market were that the first 3 days of the past week, it would go down, and then Thursday, Friday it would go up. What actually had happened is that the market went up nicely Monday through Wednesday. Results were mixed on Thursday, and then on Friday, finally, I guess my prediction came true and the market went up. So I would say I wouldn't give myself a passing rate on that one. However, I guess 1.5, I suppose, out of 5 is better than nothing. So let's see, as far as the actual predictions, as far as the geopolitical events or weather, etc., I had predicted on a sort of a long-term schedule, or long-term, I guess, my long-term predictions that maybe on a scale of months to weeks, where that there are certain countries, certain places in the world that may be experiencing some serious difficulties, including some accidents, violent attacks, earthquakes, and whatnot. And we did have, and that already would start at the end of, there will be multiple times in 2019 and 2020 that would occur. One of the times would be end of March and through about mid-April. And the countries that I specifically mentioned were New Zealand and Serbia. And indeed, we have had, unfortunately, a very violent terrorist attack in New Zealand, and we had news about anti-government protests in Serbia. Then on the kind of a weekly scale predictions, I had prediction about US experiencing additional increased news about Neptune-related topics such as oil, navy, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, and so forth. And also that these topics would be, I guess, important on the global scale as well. And indeed, we had some information coming out, and particularly we had a surge, I guess, in cannabis stocks on Tuesday and Wednesday. And in particular, I guess in my predictions, I specifically said that there would be potentially important agreements reached or some laws passed regarding those areas, and or that there would be new leaders. And indeed, we have heard that New Jersey in the US had passed, I guess, the law legalizing cannabis, and let's see, and that there was, I guess, Aurora Cannabis. On Wednesday, they announced that they have hired hedge fund manager Nelson Peltz as advisor. So I'd say this can be considered as a new leader. And there was also news that Oxycontin maker Purdue Pharma, who's facing possible bankruptcy due to various lawsuits accusing them of basically pushing Oxycontin too aggressively with disregard to potential, I guess, side effect of getting users or patients addicted. They have been granted fast-track designation for its emergency opioid treatment. So one of my predictions was that there would be problems or some issues, I guess, encountered by pharmaceutical companies. And in this case, I guess it was actually a positive development, although it was kind of coming from, I guess, their desire, Purdue Pharma's desire to kind of counteract the negative publicity that they've had with Oxycontin. Then specific kind of predictions for last week's days. For example, for Monday, I expected that there would be news about risky or aggressive activities of the banks. And specifically on Monday, there was some news about the New York Attorney General issuing subpoenas for the 2 banks over Trump Organization's financial records. Then there was also, I guess, came up a report about a study on Wells Fargo, I guess, ethical sort of, I guess, their culture within their the bank, and apparently they've addressed some issues where they may have been pushing customers, I guess, too aggressively. But there was an interview with one of their ex-advisors saying that basically the problems still remain, that a lot of the, I guess, advisors who push customers to purchase certain products that would benefit the bank, maybe would involve having them paying some recurring service fees, and would not necessarily be in the best interest of the customer. So I would say that could be considered a risky kind of behavior. There was also on Tuesday news about the Fed banning 2 former Goldman Sachs executives over the scandal in Malaysian investment fund. So we had news of that nature basically on Monday, Tuesday. Then my prediction for Monday, Tuesday of past week were also again for the US that there would be increased news about oil, navy, chemicals, etc. And as well as about increased maybe news about the military activities. And there was another report coming out on Tuesday basically highlighting hacking threats to US as a standing world's military power, in particular from China. Again, another sort of area of that's ruled by Neptune is movies, music, audio, etc. And there was news about MoviePass parent Helios and Matheson basically experiencing even wider than previously recorded losses resulting from their quote-unquote erroneous recognition of revenue. And that also came up on Tuesday, March 12th. Then moving on to Wednesday, and I guess again multi-week prediction has to do with transit of lunar node to the Mercury in US chart, that there would be increased news about like IT companies, high tech, aerospace, communication transportation businesses, as well as young people. Again, Mercury rules like social media, communication, young people, again, education. I didn't specifically mention education, but it is one of the domains as well. And I was expecting that it would be the end of March, early April, that there would be maybe one or a series of announcements, and they may particularly involve young people, maybe some celebrities, some YouTube celebrities, the social media celebrities, and that in March it would be a positive sort of tone to those announcements, but in April the tone would change to kind of I guess anger over perhaps some sort of subversive behavior, or somebody being manipulative and not really following the rules, so to speak. And I guess we already had news that maybe combined both of those, that some wealthy I guess young people had gotten admissions to the universities through bribes, and one of them was some sort of famous YouTube or is it Instagram celebrity. There was an article about that, I guess, in Market Watch. And in generally, this is being called like a largest rather, college admission scam in the US. And since I said this is an ongoing kind of a influence, we may actually hear follow-up to that later this month, as well as in early April. And it may be either kind of more of the same, kind of additional details on these same issues, or it may be new topics. And as I said, the more we move into April, the more kind of a negative, potentially the spin of the news. So it would be more about kind of somebody maybe violating some law, or misusing taxes, or not paying taxes, or basically doing something the way they shouldn't be doing it. And again, it may involve communication, transportation. Makes me think of even Boeing. Perhaps there will be an investigation, and there may be some news coming out that obviously maybe they have cut corners on some studies. So things like that definitely would fall into this domain. And it is interesting that, again, this is a transit to US chart specifically, but then at the same exact time we're going to be experiencing the sort of intensification of the ongoing, slowly unfolding Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, that in of itself on a global scale is going to bring us some really sort of tense times, from like I said, earthquakes and to problems with governments and leaders of large corporations. So excuse me, moving back to kind of review of the predictions for last week. Thursday, the prediction was that there may be some legal problems in the areas related for the US related to like IT, communication transportation companies, social media companies. I specifically said that media company may be in trouble, due to perhaps their unclear reporting or reporting something that maybe is false or vague. Of course, and indeed, on that day there was news about Covington Catholic students suing CNN for $275 million. Now, the news about that lawsuit kind of coming out kind of were already in the air, so you wouldn't say, okay, I predicted that, nobody else knew that, but it does fit as far as manifestation of the aspects. So that is interesting to me from the astrological perspective. There's also increased, again, focus on long-term construction projects as predicted, and particularly, and this is something I actually didn't follow, I guess didn't care, Hudson Yards Mall opened on Friday, and the construction had begun on January 2015, so that definitely falls into this kind of a significant construction project in the news, and that again was a long-term one as well. So I was expecting the news kind of heightened on Thursday, and this came out on Friday of last week. And let's see, so moving on to the predictions of this week, kind of to start with the long-term predictions that we have just briefly discussed, meaning the potential kind of intensification of the transit conjunction between Pluto and Jupiter, Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn, coupled with the nodes of the moon and transits to those from other planets, in particularly Sun and Moon will fall, will form kind of aspects to those in the upcoming days. And so some of those formations will look like a T, letter T, basically a T square, which in the past something similar like Moon node with Neptune, with a similar configuration between Sun and Moon, for example, could be seen in the chart of the Sichuan earthquake from, I believe it was May 2008. So, and with these planets being again in Capricorn, it would indeed indicate potentially really severe, serious earthquake, mudslides, anything that has to do with soil, kind of things either erupting or falling through, tunnel, bridge, collapse, any old buildings, old structures that are sort of structures meaning government or large corporation kind of going down. Again, Pluto and Saturn don't make things happen necessarily immediately, and the aspect is slow, but it would be something that would be large scale, affecting many people. That's what the nodes kind of indicate, really large scale sort of effect, maybe on the level of the country, government being, toppled, or, long-term leader passes away or is forced out. There could be definitely terrorist attacks. Pluto has to do with things like nuclear power, so it could be some accidents, and it also has to do with recycling, anything that's kind of like dirty and garbage, hidden underground, or things that are done through like hacking, manipulation, terrorism, violence. So a lot of probably violent protests. So things definitely will be escalating. And again, this is already, as I said last week in my video blog, that we may anticipate some kind of a smaller scale events, maybe some tremors of the earth somewhere. Then, at the end of the month of March, that might culminate, and there may be one large earthquake, and or there may be small attacks or protests on a smaller scale, and they may kind of increase and kind of really take things can be taken to the next level in early to mid-April. And particularly the days that I see the most stressful are March 22nd, 25 through 29, April 2nd through 6th, and April 9th through 12th. Out of those, I would say April 4th and April 12th look particularly serious. So I do have a blog, and I have also this is all written on tolstunka.com, so the dates and some more examples of what might potentially happen, like maybe some exposure to radiation. So all of that could be combined, an earthquake, nuclear plant suffers, malfunction, etc., etc. So let's see. Some of the countries that may potentially be involved, I mentioned them before, could be like US, China, I already had listed previously, like Serbia and New Zealand. Also could be Japan. I did not list Pakistan and India at the time that I wrote this, but now I'm thinking they may potentially be included in that, because I believe both countries, because they have such similar sort of birth charts, natal charts, I believe they have moon in the 25th degree. I forgot of which sign, but I mean, I can look that up obviously, or anybody can look it up. But I believe it may also be affected by some of these transits, and that may also indicate some, concerns about safety and security. But the countries that I have listed here, let me see what else I've mentioned, like Belgium, Czech Republic, Greece, Madagascar, Mexico, Japan, as I said, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Vietnam, and European Union. Those, at the time I wrote this, to me jumped kind of the most as having their charts affected by this. Now, since we already had some anti-government protests in Serbia and this attack in New Zealand, it's possible that these are sort of these tremors or, preliminary sort of indications of some more things to follow. Unfortunately, Christchurch has also experienced a really massive earthquake previously, and I did look at the, that was on February 22nd, 2011. At that time, Venus was in the 20th degree, or 20 something, 20 degree, 22 minutes or something of Capricorn, and we do have Saturn right now hovering sort of around that same degree. So it is possible that that could be a place where a large earthquake or one of potentially upcoming large earthquakes might occur. So other predictions, ascending predictions, are about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that things are not looking great for her, meaning that May, June, she may be extra either busy or tired, or may consider kind of leaving the office simply because things may be too much for her, or maybe her health just will need additional attention. Similarly, in the US, as I mentioned, this long-term sort of prediction about either IT or communication, transportation companies, aerospace, or young people, potential education, or just young celebrities in general. We may hear more news, and the next kind of two kind of clusters of dates would be March 21st, 23rd, and then April 2nd through 4th, and April 2nd through 4th, again, combined with this global kind of tension, it may be even, something related to, US companies, say in IT or transportation, communication, or aerospace area, either having some problems and they affect many people, or there may be some concerns about maybe their activity, or maybe something is hacked, which just reminds me about prediction from last week. There was also outage, I guess, on Facebook and Instagram last week. So this could be something along the same lines, where many people are affected, and the companies from the US and or users in the US are affected the most, and it has to do with communication, transportation, IT, high tech, anything that's like flying, moving, or involves communication, or involves things like education and young people. So moving on to the daily predictions, I have to note that for the first 4 days of the week, maybe 3, I'm not as sure about the direction, meaning that it's just not very clear because there are mixed sort of influences. So I'm making kind of predictions with a fairly low level of probability, but I'm the most certain of the direction on Friday, the 22nd, because it's such a stressful day. So I believe Friday will definitely be down. Then on Monday, my prediction at the 18th, that the market may possibly go up 55%. Today is actually Monday. I'm again late recording this, but so I've seen it actually went up. But again, my sort of certainty of that was fairly low, so I do try to mark that down. Predictions for 18th through 20th of March is that there will be, again, increased focus on long-term projects that involve development of, say, long-term bases that are military bases, or constructing some long-term weapon, or maybe it's long-term kind of a discussions about, say, nuclear weapons, but something that takes a really long time to kind of either build or dismantle or come to an agreement to, or something that functions really slowly. So those kind of projects, again, related to military or to increasing sort of building up maybe troops somewhere, will be proceeding fine. Like there would be nothing stopping that, except there may be concerns about sort of how much does it cost, like is this really worth it, and is there value in that, or sort of what are the expenses behind it. On Tuesday, as I said, 55 to 60% probability, fairly low probability. I'm thinking it might also, the market might go up. Again, up on Wednesday, 55% chance, with Wednesday, the 20th of March, possibly experiencing greater than usual market moves because there may be news about some international agreements or contracts being reached, or about some legal issues or laws or long distance shipments. So anything basically international affairs, and or something that has to do with long distance kind of a transportation. So it could be, again, international agreement about transporting some goods, and that may potentially trigger larger than usual market move. I think it's most likely will be up, but again, low probability on this one. Let's see, then on the 20th of March through the 22nd, I also expect that there will be increased news about either healthcare or sports or military, with the focus kind of interrelated in the way that maybe, say, there's a military or sports leader of some sort, or famous athlete, and they suffer from some injury, or there's a treatment or news about some treatment, and the treatment is particularly kind of geared towards wounds or problems, health problems that arise from maybe exercising too much, overexerting, or being sort of, you don't have to be in the battlefield, but you can cut yourself or be hurt by fire. So burns, wounds, injuries to the head, to the brain, and just kind of being hurt by sharp objects, or experiencing fever, or something contagious that again spreads through basically, again, body going through some fever, and what I'm thinking is also this Pluto and Saturn conjunction may also indicate potentially a spread of some either plague or epidemic, or some really unhealthy conditions where, again, there's a lot of garbage, things are just kind of not being taken care of. Pluto and Saturn kind of interaction had previously been kind of coinciding with the spread of AIDS back in the 80s, I believe it was the 80s. So it basically, we can hear something along those lines, and at the same time there may be focus on medication or treatments. But again, previous week maybe we were focusing on like opioids or some addictive substances. This time it will be more about like maybe headaches, brain injuries that, again, from sharp objects, burns, wounds, etc. Or athletes or military leaders are being appointed. They're new, or they are removed, again, in a surprising fashion, or they fall ill. And again, it could be something sudden, like an accident, or just a sudden, problem, some sudden injury, like fire, sharp objects, gunshot, racing accidents, things like that. In the US, again, on the 20th of March, there may be increased news about leadership, and the dynamic might be interesting, where there may be sort of a opposition between like a man and a woman. Of course, who could those be? So, but it would be some sort of a dynamic where maybe there's a male leader and a female leader, and they're somehow arguing over something. And the topics in particular may be foreign affairs, legal issues, or immigration-related issues. So there may be some of this kind of a tug of war there between them, some standoff. On the 21st, Thursday, I also believe it might be a large move day, so it will be Friday. So I guess Wednesday through Friday, large moves days, regardless of the direction, especially Friday, and especially, I guess, down on Friday is the most kind of a certain prediction. So Thursday, I believe it will be, again, up, slight 55% probability. I previously thought it might be down, but there are some supportive aspects there as well. Regardless, like I said, it could be a really large move day, the entire second half of the week. And March 21st through 22nd, especially 22nd, we may hear news about oil, Navy, water, pharmaceuticals, gas, chemicals, or about some drugs and treatments. As I said, again, more that have to do with treating like burns, wounds, maybe chemical burns. Actually, it would be a perfect example. So there could be news about some chemical attack, and therefore about treating that, which again reminds me there was some news about, I guess, some chemical plant burning in Texas. I guess it was Deer Park, and that could be an example of, again, these kind of prelude or preliminary event that coincides with this sort of a ramping up of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, where, again, I wouldn't say it's a small scale, it's a large scale incident, but it's something that might be coming up, maybe even more than that, and again results in a pollution of large scale. Could be even this incident, but something that grows and perhaps it can be stopped, or it ends up polluting larger area or having worse consequences than expected. Let's see. And so for Friday, as I said, my prediction is down 60 to 65%, and that looks kind of the worst of the week. Now, kind of a prediction for the end of this week and through early April, we will have really intensified focus on, again, Neptunian matters, with sort of Mercury and Neptune hovering close to each other, with Mercury first being retrograde and then turning direct. I believe it's going to be on the 27th of March, depending where you are in the world, 28th. And the focus will be associated with Neptunian things like, again, oil, chemicals, navy, water, beverages, special alcoholic beverages, poisons, chemicals, deceptions, lies, religion, music, movies. So any, as well as pollution and any sort of bodies of water, so maybe wet weather, some problems involving that, or maybe some diseases spread through water. So there may be a lot more sort of, again, Mercury brings us a lot more communication about these issues. So maybe contracts, maybe sales, maybe some mergers, acquisition among companies from these areas, or maybe a lot more sales or shipments of oil. Maybe there's just a little too much of it, or too much of some drug, and it's just kind of, again, the sales either go up, or it may be they're trying to ship a lot of these products from one place to another. And while Mercury's retrograde through about the 22nd of March, things may be either on a sort of slowdown where it's not clear where should they be shipped, or things are not approved for shipment, or they're not kind of approved for sale, for retail sales, or contract is not finalized, and kind of things are under review, under questioning. And then on the 27th, 28th of March, things would then turn sort of, and direction would be changed. So something that was under review, pending review, maybe is released, maybe some sort of drug is approved, or maybe there's a shipment that's kind of stuck in limbo of oil, for example, or some chemicals, and it is approved to go through. Or again, the M&A, merger acquisition of some companies finally actually happens, or a report that's been worked on in the works for a long time, data gathering stage. Finally, things are going to be released to the public. But because of, again, this long of time of these two planets, Mercury and Neptune, are going to be together, definitely there may be a lot of sort of, while this is happening, and Neptune also has to do with like confusion, illusion, delusion, wishful thinking, there probably will be kind of confusion about these areas. So it may not be clear, like, okay, who is, shipping what to whom. Like, for example, what does this drug do? Will it be approved or not? Or do we have sort of enough oil, or do we not have enough oil? Is the shipment kind of going through of oil, for example? Or maybe there will be a chemical attack, and it's going to be a lot of sort of speculation. Who did this? Where did this come from? And or there may be some lies around something. Again, Mercury has to do with young people and education, so there may be some, again, confusion about that. Basically, who did what? Maybe there will be some documents signed, and kind of then things will be reversed. Or maybe at first, again, the agreements may not be going through because there'll be some suspicion and confusion about that. But then finally, again, when the Mercury turns direct, the contract, will be signed. So some confusion, and that, I would say, does not look good for the market. I'm not saying things will tank, but I'm just saying the uncertainty usually corresponds with kind of market down. And certainly the key dates that I mentioned before, especially April 4th and 12th, I would say probably look like down days to me because of big tensions. Of course, sometimes it could be that the market is doing its own thing, even though there may be a major earthquake somewhere in the world. But definitely, I would say, avoid traveling to like those kind of dangerous areas if you possibly can. And let's see what happens. Definitely, these are rare, I guess, rarely occurring aspects. So whatever happens at those times may be quite significant. So that's it for me for today. I hope this was informative and interesting and you had fun watching, and we'll come back for more next week. So I'll talk to you all guys soon. Bye.